So next I would like to share with you the inspirational reading. And the reading for today is from The Four Spiritual Laws of Prosperity by Edwene Gaines. I've had the pleasure of working with Edwene in a film, and I had the opportunity to interview her. And I was extra blessed because she prayed for me when I had no money and no clue. So thank you, Edwene. Yeah, so it's very special to me, her work. Anyway, so just wanted to throw that in there. Okay, right from the beginning of her book, The Four Spiritual Laws of Prosperity, Edwene Gaines makes it quite clear that prosperity is not just about money. When she is asked the question, so what is true prosperity? She replies, my definition is a vitality alive physical body to provide a comfortable worldly home for the spiritual beings that we are. Relationships that are satisfying, nurturing, honest, and work all the time. Work that we love so much, it's not work, it's play. And all the money we can spend. And so it is. Okay. So
now, earlier you heard Edwene Gaines's definition of prosperity. Vitally alive physical bodies, amazing relationships, work that we love, and all of the money that we can spend. Now, she says that to be truly prosperous, that all four aspects of this definition we must experience. Therefore, we can't really look at other people, look at their lives from outside in, and say that they are truly prosperous just because they appear to have a lot of money. We can't look from the outside in and really know very much about their health or about their relationships or about the work that they do. Now, this is the little book that we're talking about today. This is a very little but extremely powerful book. I mean, just look at this. I mean, you can't see it maybe all the way from back there, but there's tons of underlining. There's tons of stars and highlighting. And look at all these flags. And my gosh, look at the binding is coming apart. This is a powerful and really amazing little book. And throughout and underlying the book is the belief that we as human beings living on this planet are subject to a number of laws. Now, some of these laws are physical laws, such as the law of gravity, while others are spiritual laws. And these laws are working for us all of the time, whether we are aware of it or not. In this book, Edwene Gaines shares with us four spiritual laws that she feels that by abiding by, it will allow us to really achieve true prosperity. Now, these four, I'm having a little experience with a little physical law myself. The law of the bra strap sliding down the arm. Sorry. I can't talk with my hands if I can't move them, right? So now these four spiritual laws, the first is you must tithe 10% of all that you receive to the person, place, or institution from which you receive your spiritual food. Number two, you must set clear-cut, tangible goals. Number three, you must forgive everyone all of the time, especially yourself. And number four, you must seek, discover, and follow your divine purpose. Now, these four spiritual laws are just as much a force in our lives as gravity is. They are very simple laws, but none of them are optional. And it doesn't really matter if we believe in them or not. They play a very powerful role in our lives, regardless of our awareness of them or our belief in them. Throughout the book, Edwene Gaines tells a lot of stories about herself. And she tells a lot of stories about a lot of other people who demonstrate the promise of true prosperity that awaits each of us. And yet she is also very clear to state that we really need to experience this truth, these spiritual laws for ourselves firsthand so that we can really believe in them. She invites us to give ourselves 6 months. 6 months to really commit to following these spiritual laws as she states them, stating that we really have absolutely nothing to lose by doing that. To just take 6 months to commit ourselves to really following them. She says, keep an open mind. Act in faith even when you feel doubt, and simply observe the astonishing changes as they take place in your life. Now, I believe that we live in a universe that is always for us and never against us, and that it behooves us to be in alignment with the power and presence of the divine that is within us. That prosperity, abundance, and wealth is already here, that it is already ours by our birthright, and that we can choose to be in alignment with them or not. It is our choice. Edwene Gaines says, you are rich with unlimited possibility. If you don't believe that, then you are spiritually poor and will be living in constant physical poverty. Only when you can genuinely believe that you are blessed with unlimited possibility can prosperity come into your lives. Only when you can genuinely believe that you are blessed. Now, the first spiritual law is the law of tithing. And again, it simply says you must give 10% of all that you receive to the person, place, or institution from which you receive your spiritual food. Tithing is an opportunity to say, thank God. Its purpose is to acknowledge that God, the invisible source back of everything that there is the source of our good, and that we are aware of that truth and that we are grateful for all of the good that is in our lives. Now, for some, this idea of tithing might seem like a really impossible stretch. For some, this idea of tithing may bring up huge amounts of resistance within you. Now, Edwene Gaines is a really powerful woman. Really powerful woman. I, too, have met her, and she's amazing. She would be the first to say, however, that she has not always been so powerful. When she first began to recognize the importance of tithing and to begin to practice it in her life, there were many times when she did not know where the money for the next meal for herself and for her daughter was going to come from. She was often down to the last couple of dollars, and yet she was committed to the practice of tithing, and her life dramatically changed because of it. This is why she's so adamant about it. Now, I think that our economic situation, no matter what our economic situation is, that we will feel that stretch, that we may feel that resistance when we begin to first think about tithing, or we begin to actually start tithing. I remember reading a story about a man who was struggling to tithe, even though he was receiving a huge amount of money for his income. He said to Peter Marshall, who was at the time the chaplain for the United States Senate, I used to tithe regularly some years ago, But now I'm earning $500,000 a year, and there is just no way I can afford to give $50,000. Now, what I believe is that his regular tithing practice, that regular tithing practice that he practiced all of those years ago, kept him in the flow of good, and that gave back to him an ever-increasing amount of money that ultimately resulted in him receiving $500,000 a year, and even despite that, he still felt that stretch. He still felt that resistance. He still had thoughts of lack and limitation, the same kind of thoughts of lack and limitation that Edwene Gaines had when she had absolutely nothing. Tithing is really the prosperity principle that brings up the most resistance in many of us. And when that resistance comes up in us, it's usually because we believe in some fear that there will not be enough to go around. But the truth is, as Cindy sang about, we live in an abundant universe. Spiritual law number 2 is goal setting. Edwene Gaines says, goal setting is looking honestly at where you are, then choosing, hear that word, choosing where you want to be, and then setting a clear and deliberate intention to get there. Doing so forces you to live consciously rather than unconsciously. So some people may call them goals, some people may call them intentions. Now, while we're not talking about all of them this morning, in the book she shares 10 steps of personal goal setting. But before she shares those, she actually talks about some other ideas around this idea of goal setting that are really important to the process. And the first is that one of the main reasons that many people do not reach their goals is because they believe something about themselves that will prevent them from actually reaching their goal. They believe something about themselves that gets in the way of achieving that goal. So the first idea is that we really need to cast aside our limitations and to really step into being who we truly are, a child of God with unlimited possibilities. The second is that we have to open ourselves up to that possibility. We have to go back to being the blank slates that we arrived on the planet as, without all of the stories that we've told ourselves about ourselves, without all the race consciousness ideas that we may have bought into. We have to be the blank slate, the innocence that we arrived on the planet as. And third, before we even begin to set up goals, we have to know what it is that we truly want. We have to be very clear about it in our own minds. As we become clearer about that which we do want, we also become clearer about that which we do not want. And then the invitation is to really be willing to let go of those things that we do not want, to make room for the new. One of the steps is to write down all of your desires. Whether they're big desires or little desires, it doesn't matter. Just write them all down. Edwene Gaines says, simply writing down your ideas will send a powerful message to your subconscious mind that the world is an abundant place and that all things are truly possible. A message to your subconscious mind. After that, we are encouraged to choose our most important desires and then to list them on a list in order of their importance and to be very specific. Once we have a goal in mind, then we can start taking steps to get ready. What action could we take that would tell the universe that we really mean business? And then take that action. Consider what changes we may need to make within ourselves in order to achieve our goals. to go into meditation, to ask the question and to be willing to listen for the answer and then willing to make the changes. So the question that we might ask ourselves as we go into meditation is very simple, very clear. What must I change about myself in order to achieve this goal? Similar to the question that we ask when we're visioning, what do I need to release to embody this vision? What must I change about myself? We're also encouraged to read our list of goals at least 3 times in the morning and 3 times at night. This keeps our goals in the forefront of our mind. We have a tendency to be, lured into turning away from those desires, turning away from those goals, and returning back to our old beliefs or our old ways of doing it. Resist that impulse to do that. Consider, excuse me, consider really working towards having a mental equivalent. Having a mental equivalent means that we have a really good idea about that which it is that we're trying to achieve. And when we have that mental equivalent, that is a very powerful thing. Take on the feeling tone, or as Mary Mann and Morrissey would say, put on the coat of the person who has already achieved what it is you are trying to achieve. Imagine it. Imagine it in your mind's eye and then act as if it has already been achieved, as if you already have it. Really believe that we absolutely receive that which we ask for. In the Bible it says, ask and it shall be given. Even before, the words come out of our mouth. So really believe that we absolutely receive that which we ask for. The third spiritual law is you must forgive everyone all of the time, especially yourself. Now, forgiveness is not always, really hard all of the time. But it truly is a choice that we can make. And really the bottom line is that we have to make it. We really have to make it. Forgiveness is capable of producing some of the most profound transformations that you could ever hope for, that you could ever imagine in your life or in the lives of those people that you love. Forgiveness has the power to heal both our inner and our outer lives. It can change how we see ourselves and how we see our world. It can change how we experience the world. It can bring an end once and for all to all of the inner conflicts that so many of us carry around each and every single moment of every single day. Imagine the peace that could come to the planet if every single one in the world were to let go of all of their grievances with their neighbors. Imagine what could happen if we could let go of all of the old battles, those battles that we've had for centuries around and over our racial differences, our religious differences, our political differences, our sexual differences, or all of the past injuries that we've done to one another. Just imagine what that world could be like. It is said that forgiveness is for ourselves, not for someone else, because the experience of not forgiving imprisons. It imprisons our lives. It poisons our own hearts and our own lives. Forgiving is not condoning the unloving or unjust actions on the part of anyone. It is simply choosing not to drag around the past into our present moment or into the future. It is consciously choosing to let go of the past and create space for new experiences to come into our lives. Edwin Gaines says, forgiveness frees us from the endless loop of blame and bad feelings that keep our minds focused on all of the wrong things. With forgiveness, we let go of the past and turn to other, more important issues in our lives, such as how to be truly happy, to have the things that we want, and to thrive with a sense that we are joyfully fulfilling our life's purpose. Doesn't that sound like a whole heck of a lot more fun to focus on? In order to forgive, we have to be willing to release the past. In order to forgive, we have to be willing to see the divine unfolding in all people, in all interactions, in all relationships, in all events, and in all experiences, including those that we experience as unpleasant. In order to forgive, we have to be willing to see perfection within what appears to be imperfect. In order to forgive, we have to have the heartfelt desire to be free. In her book, Edwin Gaines shares a number of forgiveness practices, and I'll share just a couple of them this morning. The first is writing, speaking, and listening to forgiveness affirmations. Now, this is a very effective way to begin the forgiveness process. The key to creating really powerful, transforming affirmations is to say what we want to be true as if it were already true. So, for example, you could say, I forgive myself completely for every mistake that I have ever made. Might be hard to say the first few times, but as you say it more and more, there begin to be some little subtle shifts within yourself, and pretty soon you can say it more powerfully and more powerfully. Or we could say, I forgive my parents, knowing that they did the very best that they could at the time. A second forgiveness technique or practice would be to spend a few moments before going to sleep asking ourselves, have I put anyone out of my heart today? Isn't that just a lovely question to ask yourself? Have I put anyone out of my heart today? Once we've prayerfully asked the question and have received the answer, the invitation is to forgive ourselves for the judgment that we felt in that moment and for the need to control someone else's behavior, and then to energetically invite them back into our heart space, making a commitment to be more awake and aware. Ooh. Probably not something we've ever really done before or chose to do before, unless you've read her book. But what I want you to remember is that this practice of forgiveness is not about the other person. It is about ourselves. About ridding ourselves of that poison, unbinding ourselves, and being free. The fourth spiritual law is finding your divine purpose. She says you must seek, discover, and follow your divine purpose. You must assign significance and meaning to your life, giving yourself strength and endurance, and bring joy to your experience on a daily basis. When you are aligned with your divine purpose, you bring passion to all that you do. Now, probably that's something that we can all get on board with, right? Get behind. That sounds like a great life to live. The thing is, though, that we often tend to look at people like Gandhi or Martin Luther King or Mother Teresa or Nelson Mandela. And as we look at them and their lives, we think that our purpose has to be big and grandiose. And when we begin to think like that, we begin to get overwhelmed, and we actually really stop looking for our purpose. Stop living into it. However, the truth is that each and every single one of us has some special gift, has some special interest, has some special talent, some way of impacting the world in our own unique way. It could be at that really high level, involving like the entire world, the entire planet, the cosmos, or it could be just a small slice of that. A small slice of that touches somebody who then goes on to touch somebody else, who then touches somebody else. There's absolutely no way that we could ever know how far in extending that small little slice of us being our purpose out in the world affects everyone else. We could never really ever know. The question Edwene Gaines says that we all need to ask ourselves is, am I willing to define, embrace, and hold fast to my divine purpose prayerfully, persistently, and patiently? And if the answer is yes, you can absolutely know beyond a shadow of a doubt that it can be possible to express that purpose. Earlier, we talked about making goals. Our divine purpose is different from our goals. A goal is a tangible desire with an end result, while our divine purpose is really a way of living our lives. A goal might be to begin to learn how to paint with watercolors, while the purpose behind it might be to bring joy to the lives of others through art. Can hear that subtle distinction there. Our goals have definite deadlines, but our divine purpose is something that we will do throughout the rest of our lives. In the book, Edwene Gaines encourages us to look out at the world, to see what is important to us, to see what we believe might need transforming. Now, it might be something that touches us or moves us or inspires us in some way to begin to find the solutions. Now, the thing that she emphasizes, however, is that it should be fun. It should be fun for us to be involved in this. It should be fun for us to focus on this. It should be fun for us to participate in the repairing, the restructuring, and the shifting of consciousness. We have an inner guidance system within us that can assist us to find our divine purpose. And according to Edwene Gaines, it is our ability to feel joy. We are encouraged to get out of our daily grinds, to get quiet, and then to really literally use our imaginations to reimagine ourselves and our lives, to turn within and to listen to the yearnings of our soul, to trust the process, begin in faith, do what we love to do what brings us joy, and without knowing exactly what the end game is, to know that we are powerfully stepping into embarking on our divine purpose. To let joy be our guide and to learn to live in a world of unlimited possibilities. Edwene Gaines says, your life means what you say it means. Take that in. Your life means what you say it means. Nothing more, nothing less. The fastest way for you to find your divine purpose is to make it up. The easiest way to make a plan up is to ask yourself, what would be the most fun thing I could do with my life? And that is your divine purpose. So the invitation today is to put our trust in God, to cast aside any limitations that we might have about ourselves or about the universe, and to begin to tithe. To create goals that are specific and heartfelt, to read the goals every day, make the changes within ourselves that we need to make, and begin to act as though the goals have already been achieved. The invitation is to let go of the past, be willing to see the divine unfolding in all people and in all interactions, and to forgive ourselves and others in order to be free. To do the inner work, to connect to our divine purpose, and to find a way to joyfully and authentically bring that purpose out into the world. And then just really sit and watch as these 4 spiritual laws and our commitment to them bring prosperity, abundance, and wealth into our lives. And so it is. And so it is. Please turn within. How good it is to be able to take a moment to turn within, to remember that which is back of everything. To remember our deep and abiding connection to it. To remember that we are spiritual beings having a human incarnation created by God out of God's stuff in its image and likeness, that right where we are, God is in its wholeness and in its fullness, a hologram of God's stuff. I know that this is true for me. I know that it is true for everyone in this room. I know that it is true for each and every person within the sound of my voice. Each of us is a unique and divine expression of it. And it is from that place of unity, this deep and abiding oneness that we have between each other, between life itself, and to God through that golden thread of God's stuff that weaves itself throughout all of life, that I speak these words of prayer for each of us this morning, individually and collectively. Knowing that there is a way that we can live our lives from a place of prosperity, from a place of abundance and wealth. That we have everything within us to live that life. I claim ease and grace around all of it for us, around letting go of anything that is in resistance to any of these 4 spiritual laws. Anything that is holding us back, any old belief that we have that we may not have what it takes to reach our goals or to be abundant, or that we are enough, that anything unlike the truth of who we are as a child of God falls to the wayside from which it came. And as we powerfully stand in alignment with the truth of who we are, we bring that awareness to everything that we do. We tithe from the fullness of our plate. We create goals that are self-affirming and heartfelt. We powerfully begin to take the steps to move towards achieving those goals. We begin this process of forgiveness, knowing that it truly is for ourselves, not condoning anything or sweeping anything on the rug, but really allowing ourselves to powerfully live the life that we are meant to live. And I'm so grateful to know this truth and to speak these words. So grateful for the power of prayer, knowing that these words are loosed into that law that only ever says yes. That my words are clothed in form even as they are spoken, and so I speak them and I release them with love and with gratitude and full expectation of their manifestation, letting go and letting God be God. And I invite each of us to anchor this prayer for ourselves and for each other and for our community simply by saying, and so it is, and so it is. Amen. Thank you, everyone.